Tally ho there, champs, and welcome to the show. Now today I'm going to be talking about the ALIENWARE 13 R3 with the OLED display. Now I have already reviewed the ALIENWARE 13 R3, made a full review on that. I've made a gaming review. I'll leave a link in the description and a card up here. You can check those out. This is not going to be a full review. I'm just going to tell you the difference between the full HD version and this OLED version here. This is a completely different unit, of course, and there's actually a difference in the temperature between that and my review unit I used. So that's interesting. I'm also lucky enough to have the ALIENWARE Graphics Amp 2 to hook up to this beast, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So I'm just going to be focusing basically on the screen, the differences between this and the other model I reviewed on the ALIENWARE Graphics Amp. So let's get stuck into it. First of all, when you open that screen, oh my god, wow, it is unbelievable, this display. Now I have an XPS 15 and yeah, I probably still think that's the best display, but there are some things about this OLED display that just blow you away. Its inky black levels are phenomenal, like nothing can compare. How vibrant it is, the colors just pop. It's just like looking at a Samsung OLED screen. No ghosting. Its response time is just so fast, like it's next level, which makes this great for gaming, and its pixel response is super fast too. And how sharp the text is. Like the text on this is even sharper than the 4K XPS 15. Now I still do believe the XPS 15 is a better display. I'll talk about that later. But just in terms of contrast, vibrancy, just pop, and how crisp that text is, because of that contrast it has, you know, the differences between the colors there, the text is just so sharp. You really have to see it to believe it. And pretty much when I was benchmarking, I always turned VSync off to, you know, see how many frames per second I can get. And this is the actual first screen I have seen in a while where I've actually noticed tearing. Yes, you can see tearing on other LCD like IPS, XO panels, you can see it because sort of one frame sort of blends into the other. The refresh rate is so fast on this that you will see the tearing. So you want to have VSync enabled and stuff like that because it refreshes that fast that you will notice tearing. So playing games, super responsive, no ghosting, just even reading text. It's just a fantastic display. Now it is a 256 by 1440, so it is a 1440p display. So this is powerful enough to virtually push up there towards the 60 frames per second high settings most games, even at 1440p. Now obviously this is a different unit I had when I done my review and my gaming review, so I was just interested in the temperature because the review unit I had got up to over 90 degrees, and 90 degrees isn't critical, 91, 92. It's not critical, but it's getting up there. Well, this one here, it never cracked 90 degrees, mostly stayed in the low 80s, maybe up to the mid 80s, so it was like nearly 10 degrees cooler than the full HD version I tested in my review and my gaming review. Now, it is a lot cooler now in Melbourne. Back then when I tested it, the room was over 30 degrees. Now the room is, you know, it's like low 20s. So there is a big difference in ambient temperature, but now I have the turbocharger here, the graphics amp. So is the graphics amp worth buying in 2017? Is it still the best graphics amp to buy? The only downside to this graphics amp is you have to use it with an ALIENWARE product. Now, if you could call that a downside, because ALIENWARE products are fantastic. Now, it is actually better than a Thunderbolt 3 external GPU because it doesn't have all the overheads that Thunderbolt 3 external GPUs have. And if you want to know more about that, I'll leave a link and just check out this lady's review. She talks about Thunderbolt 3 2 times versus 4 times, etc. And she explains it the best I've ever had it explained. So I'm not even going to bother trying to explain, just check out her video. I'll leave a link in the description there. Now there's no point in me doing benchmarks because the performance will just be based on whatever graphics card you put in it, but it's super simple to use. This already has the NVIDIA graphics driver in it. I didn't even have to install it, just plugged it in, restarted, boom, I have turbocharged graphics. Now you want to check if your graphics card will fit in it. 2.5 slot graphics cards may have trouble fitting in it width wise, like for example the GTX 1080 Ti Strix card I reviewed. It just fits, like it actually does touch. It's a really tight fit, and I actually put a Gigabyte Extreme, and that does not fit in at all. It's too wide and you cannot close it, but you can still use it without closing it, if you were wondering. Now, just to sum up performance of the external GPU, I was using the 1080 Ti Strix in it, so yeah, maxed out pretty much all the settings, and I got well in excess of 60 frames per second, which is pretty much the refresh rate of the OLED display. You don't want to go more than that, but max settings, no problems. And what you'll get is, if you're routing the external graphics amplifier back into the laptop, you'll lose 10 to 15% compared to a desktop using the same GPU, and I'm talking a desktop with a 6800K, not overclocked. If you route the graphics out to an external monitor from the Alienware graphics amp, depending on what Alienware device you have, like for the Alpha R2, there was virtually no difference compared to a desktop using the same graphics card. With the Alienware 13, it was around 5% or something like that, and that's just the CPU. It's not actually the graphics amp that's being bottlenecked there. What's great about this is you can put all your graphics horsepower outside your laptop, so it runs much cooler. Like the internal GPU on the Alienware 13 was running at 50 degrees when I was using the external Alienware graphics amp. It does give you the option of using a monitor with a different resolution from your laptop's resolution. So whichever way you go, putting it back into your laptop from the graphics amp, you're losing the 10-15%. Routing it out to an external display, you won't lose much at all, depending on what Alienware product you're using. So that's it, guys. Just thought I'd have a chat about the OLED Alienware 13 and its turbocharger. If this video was helpful, give me a thumbs up there. Make sure you check out my review on the Alienware 13. I'd like to thank you viewers for watching. I've got lots more tech content coming soon. And until next time, guys, tally ho.